Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Good. How are you guys? You good?
Good.
Great.
Good.
Excellent.
Okay.
So I have a huge privilege to spend time with Bukky and Etop over the course of actually a few months that I've had the privilege of getting to know you. What makes Bukky and Etop so extraordinary is that I think that they are superhumans. They are not only very passionate about what they do, but they seem to have an enormous energy in their everyday life and their endeavors. But before we go in and talk about big picture about your businesses, allow me to ask some personal questions around your particular businesses. So if I start with you, Etop, which is the fastest moving car that you are selling? Which is the one that when it comes in, it just moves?
That would be Toyota Camry, 2008 to 2007.
Why is that particular car moving faster than others?
I think price point is very key. So it's sub 2 million. It also has a big, it's nicely shaped as well. And it kind of gives people, has good fuel consumption, but also is a bit prestigious because it's quite large.
Cool.
So it serves the purpose of low fuel consumption. It's large, so it gives a prestigious look, and then it has a good price point. And price point is everything.
Okay. And so if I get it right, you hold these cars on your balance sheet, right?
Well, temporarily, because what we
Temporarily.
do is we are actually an in-between between dealers and people who want to sell their cars.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so our role is basically upfronting the cash, take on the car, and then transfer to the dealer.
Excellent. And in doing that, you do a vehicle inspection on the vehicle.
Yes.
How is that physically done?
By inspecting the vehicle.
So I walk around the vehicle and I just look at it?
So it's a process that typically takes, on average, 30 minutes, depending on the type of the car. In some cases, you have to do real thorough checks, but we have an app, and you typically go around the car. It's not a diagnostic evaluation. It's actually it's like a detective. So
Okay.
you're trying to detect what's hidden about this car and why this person is really trying to sell this car.
Do you know how to do an inspection?
I've had to learn. Yeah, we had to learn.
Very good.
And I mean, I think we've got to a point where we can actually take an individual who doesn't know anything about a car and train them over a 4-month period, and they're super ready to hit the streets and start inspecting cars.
Awesome.
So, I mean, you have to be able to inspect. It's by default.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And Bukky, for you've been in business for 20 years, and you built HealthPlus and Casabella. Which is your fastest moving stock keeping unit?
For HealthPlus?
Yeah.
It would be Coatem.
Okay, and why is
It's
that
an
moving?
anti-malarial.
Okay.
My business is not very sexy.
My apologies, I should have known that one. That's good. And why does that one, is it a particular branding that moves better than others?
Well, I think it's the gold standard for anti-malarial therapy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on the health side, which is the fastest moving stock keeping unit there?
On the beauty side, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, on the beauty side, yeah.
It would be the skin lightening products.
Okay.
Unfortunately. For the beauty side. And
it's remarkable because I try and get dark hair every single day.
Well,
not the white color, but more dark.
It's a surprise to me as well, because I think black is beautiful. But
Me too, absolutely. Excellent. So guys, let's talk big picture here, right? You are in the Endeavor group and in the club. Where do you see yourself 10 years from now? If I start with you, Bukky, you've got a vision and a picture of success. What does that look like for you?
Okay. If I take a couple of steps backwards, if you don't mind, just to remind all of us of what the industry is like. Pharmacy is a very highly regulated industry. And up till I speak, the law says that a pharmacy or chain of pharmacies must be wholly owned by pharmacists or group of pharmacies. So that basically just means that you can only access debt, and we all know that debt has a limit. You are not technically allowed to access equity, and therefore growth is capped, which is why you shouldn't be surprised that there are very few chains in Nigeria. If there's a chain, if there's a successful chain, it's either you have personal wealth or you're married into wealth. Now, the law, the law is changing, however.
I'm going to do a follow-up question on that.
So the law is supposed to be changing. We went on a riot recently. We were looking for the law. It's lost somewhere in Abuja, and it's gone through 2 readings. It's on the floor of the National Assembly, and it's supposed to open up the industry to allow equity participation. But for us, during the recession, and even before the recession, we realized that if we were truly going to be everywhere, and I mean, the numbers are very dire in the pharmacy space. Again, a few statistics. There are 774 local governments in Nigeria, and only 190 have registered pharmacies. That is why the professionals have just about 5,000 stores altogether in the whole of the country. And there are 200,000 patent medicine dealers. These are largely school set holders who are supposed to sell limited medicines, but they sell everything. And then you have infinite number of drug sellers. You see them all around you with baskets on their heads, selling antibiotics, etc. So that's what the industry is like. But we were able to persuade our leaders and our regulators last year to give us a waiver, and we became the first pharmacy in Nigeria to access equity. Now, with that, we're better able to achieve our vision, which is to be number 1 in pharmacy. Thank you. We're better able to achieve our vision, which is to be the number 1 in Africa for pharmacy, wellness, and beauty. 10 years, if there are no restrictions, if some places in the corners of Nigeria can be accessed, then we would want to have over 400 brick and mortar, and that's being conservative.
On the health side.
Pardon?
On the health side.
Yes, no, altogether as a group. When I talk about the group. We would like to have at least 400 brick and mortar, stores at a minimum, with about 6.5 million transactions. And I'm being very conservative. My industry is conservative. We would want to have gone deeper and wider with our e-commerce business. We launched on the 1st of August, softly. No advertising yet because we're still, sorting out the teething problems. And I would love HealthPlus franchises all over the country. Success for me is if we could put a HealthPlus store, whether we have different store formats. We have the deluxe, the regular, and the light version. If we could have at least one light version in every local government, that would be fantastic. But realistically speaking, at least in 25% of these local governments, that would be a big deal.
Yeah.
HealthPlus franchises and a significant private label portfolio would be great as well. And finally, I'd like to mention our distribution center. It's one of the big deals that we're working on at the moment. So going live with our distribution center will be a big deal as well.
And what about you, Etop? You also have a very clear path for success, what that means for you to scale your business?
Yeah, I mean, very clearly. I think first thing is that for us, we estimate that at least 1 million cars are transacted in Nigeria alone annually. So our goal is that in 5 years, we should be at 50% market share. And what that basically means is that, 500,000 transactions should happen through our platform annually. Second note is that, ownership of vehicles and what that would look like over the next 10 years is going to be very different from what it is now.
Okay.
So you're going to see a lot, the influence of ride sharing, of also mobility, as a way of owning cars or as a way of driving, as against thinking of it as car ownership will change.
Okay.
So our other goal as well is to be at a third of all transactions that empower mobility. So whatever people are moving, however people are moving, we want to be the facilitator in a third of those transactions across Africa. So we have pretty bold visions around that.
And you also need a brick and mortar foundation in your business.
Yes, 100%. So I think I came traditionally from a very strong consumer internet background. And I learned over time that in Africa, people consume content very well on the internet, but transactionally, there's a big trust factor, right, that is lacking. And so people need a touch point, they need a trust point where they can interact and build an understanding about whatever it is you're offering. So we've had to basically ensure we have a very strong retail presence where we do inspections. But I think largely, beyond inspections, it's a large inquiry point where people feel comfortable coming in and asking, getting to know the business, things like that. It builds a lot of trust around our business.
And is that a big issue for you, the trust element in terms of that first transaction? Because I guess people get to know you on what channel?
So basically, with cars are high value, high importance,
Yeah.
right? So maybe 2 or 3% of Nigerians will ever own a home. So it's really the most significant purchase any African will make. And when people make those transactions, high value, high importance, you typically don't go on the internet, see something, and you make a purchase. It's usually referral based. So what you find is that our strongest driver is referral. And so for us, focusing on that customer experience is very important because we realize and we know that every single person that comes in is going to be the way another person is going to come into the store. So we focus 100% because it's high value. I mean, things like that, people will always ask, is that the place to go? So it's a strong point, but it could also be a killer for your business. Because if you're scaling high, and for instance, you have terrible consumer experience. So I'll give you an example. In our business, we promote fair pricing. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a Kelly Blue Book or any benchmark for pricing.
Understood.
The only benchmark we have for pricing has been people's perception, which is very flawed in terms of what the actual market. So it's like saying in the stock market, everybody typically benchmarks against what the market actually says the price of this item is. Nobody really goes through on how does that price really come, right? It's driven by demand and supply. So in the same vein as well, on our platform, we are typically looking at demand and supply metrics, market day supply, so many things like that determine pricing. But because this is a new concept and we're market makers, we find that a lot of people have their own perception of pricing. Okay. So we understand that we will have issues with people accepting our pricing, so we up the level of customer service that we offer. So for us, the most important thing that we look at is the level of professionalism and politeness our customers have our staff have with customers who come to our locations. So that's very important for us, driving that.
And for you, Bukky, do you see the same importance of pricing in your business? Or is the element of the brick and mortar and the trust factor that comes with your store, does that give you an edge to price your product differently?
I think for HealthPlus, I mean, price is a big issue in Nigeria and in every sector. But I think first and foremost, our customers love us because we guarantee quality.
Okay.
It's one of the things that we pride ourselves in. It's how we started the business. We absolutely protect the integrity of our supply chain. And people know that they can never get fake in HealthPlus. Now, when you think of the fact that in the country, 1 out of every 5 medicine is fake, then, it's a big deal.
Exactly.
So quality is key, trust is key, knowledgeable pharmacists and support staff, these are key. And of course, price is like number 3.
What you've done very nicely, right, with HealthPlus is that the brand itself and the way that when you come into your store, because I've been to your stores, they look the same everywhere. And that gives a certain element of credibility and trust factor to people be supportive of the prices that you put into the stores.
Yes, I think maintaining our standards, training our people, and retraining them beyond whatever the country has to offer or whatever our regulators have to offer. These are some of the things that have stood us out in the industry.
Very, very good. So tell me, guys, how do you wake up in the morning? What is the thing that drives you?
The opportunity. I think we have the opportunity to become.
And it comes without challenges, the opportunity?
I don't know, definitely challenges are there. I think, knowing very clearly that the challenges are there. I think so if you allow me to speak about this, I once had a chat with Anders, and, we're going through a lot of issues at the time. And just trying to understand, how we deal with distribution, how we deal with these offline. I remember Anders talking about how every 4 hours they have to go into the markets to vet or measure the level of counterfeit products in the market. And they do this across 300 markets every 4 hours, every day. And that gave me so much comfort because it seemed like, the things that we had to do to keep track were insane. But when I met Anders and he talked about it, I was like, okay, so it's not, it seems crazy, but people have to do this to ensure their business works. So I think you have to be ready for the challenges. But I mean, I think in the challenges there are also opportunities as well when you
and
build
you
out.
feel you have the energy to keep doing this?
At least the
Take
next,
HealthPlus vitamins.
yeah, exactly. So I've had to double up on my supplements.
That's good.
And
Bukky,
everything.
I'm going to go and see you because I need some energy booster for sure. How have you done it? For 20 years you built this extraordinary business. You're going to go for another 50?
I don't know about 50, but I still have a lot of energy in me. What gives me the get up and go every day? I remember Peter Bankole of EDC. He called me out of the blues one day and said, "Bukky, you cannot fail." I don't know why he said this, but I think it was providence, because soon after the recession came, and I would remember his voice at the back of my ear, that Bukky, you cannot afford to fail. And over the years, I've become a voice in pharmacy, I've become a voice in healthcare, I've become a voice amongst women entrepreneurs, and with SMEs in general. And even though the business is no longer small, I call us a mid-sized business, I can't afford to fail. There are just too many people looking at me. Yeah. From time to time, I see my mentor, Prince Julius Adelusi Adeluyi. The first thing he does is to say a prayer for me, because he tried, he got to 25, and then he went back down to about 5. So it's a really difficult industry, highly regulated. The drug markets are alive and well, but the professionals are over-regulated. We're constantly trying to lobby our policymakers to make the environment a bit more enabling. So I think not wanting to fail. And then secondly, when we think of the fact that the life expectancy of the average Nigerian for males is 53, for females is 54. I wonder why, because we work harder. But still, 53.5 as an average is terrible. And contributing our quota to elevating the life expectancy of Nigerians, definitely. And then contributing our quota to universal health care coverage, just making sure that good quality medicines that are affordable can be accessed by the average person. These are things that keep me up.
And let's talk business models. So you guys are running truly two super cool retail-focused business models. How does Nigerian retail differ from a traditional Western retail model? Are there differences? And if so, how do you accommodate those differences? How do you navigate that? If we start with you, for example, can you see some concrete differences running the business model here in Nigeria versus if you did it in the US?
Yeah, 100%.
100%.
I think so. If you look at the US as an automotive market, first of all, the US automotive market is the largest retail market in the US itself.
Wow.
So it's very structured, and it's built on the fundamental of car manufacturers. So you see, the benefits to an automotive industry is, one, you have the primary industry, which is the car manufacturing industry, and then that falls into the used car market. Now, the US market is basically divided into 30% new cars and 70% used cars. Okay. But the new cars form the base for the used car market. Now, what this does is that, assume every year you have 10 million cars that are going to be produced, right? They know what models, they know what makes, the part manufacturers know what to prep up for, the workshop guys know what to do, everybody knows how many people they need to hire, all that is set up. Now, in our market, we're driven by imports. 99% of the cars that are driven in Nigeria are imported. And we don't have large-scale importers. It's driven by micro-importers. So you have 700,000 cars coming into Nigeria every year, driven by one individual bringing in 2 cars. I mean, the single largest importer of cars into the country brings in 600 units from 700,000 cars. So if you think about that dynamic, how do you plan for this industry? So nobody knows what parts to buy. The workshops can't plan for scale. What kind of, there's nothing that can be done.
You're going to have to do the same like Bukky does to become a leader in the industry?
Yes.
To drive the lobbying and the regulatory direction?
Exactly.
Because I guess there's not even a lot of legislation that governs this.
Exactly. So what typically we're doing, and our focus is building an ecosystem where value is created, which is why our platform, first of all, we need to ensure that data is accessible. 2 is that you can create a standard. So we have a grading standard we've created in cars when you inspect a car, this is what a grade A car is, things like that.
And there is no national standard for this, so you are effectively developing a standard.
Exactly. These are things that we've had to do from the benchmark. Then standardizing dealerships, then standardizing the aftermarket, which is a big piece, right? So these are all the things that basically make it possible for an automotive industry to thrive. And then you can then talk about financing, because if there's valuation, if there are inspection values, things like that, then the financing industry feels much more comfortable knowing that liquidity is created.
Understood.
And there's a standard as well in the market.
And for you, Bukky, how does the retail model here, does it even differ compared to the Western world?
There's huge differences. I mean, the first thing is the fact that Nigeria does not produce its consumption in the pharmaceutical industry. One of the most basic ingredients is pharmaceutical-grade starch, which is still imported. Even the so-called made-in-Nigeria medicines are really packaged here.
Understood.
And so there's a huge gap between the needs of the people and what is available. Therefore, when people ask me, what percentage of your products are sourced locally, it's nice to tell them 55 to 60%. And yes, 55 to 60%, but generally speaking, these products are also imported. So it's the fact that we don't produce, we don't have the capacity to meet the pharmaceutical needs. And therefore, we have to look to the US and the UK largely, at least HealthPlus. I know some other businesses go to other countries, but we would typically go to the UK and to the US to bridge that gap. The challenge is there's a shortage of medicines in the UK, and they're trying to block those outlets as well.
Understood.
So availability is a big problem, both locally and even internationally. And I think the other issue is health insurance.
Okay.
A lot of developed countries power pharmaceutical care on health insurance, but a lot of Nigerians, majority, 95 or more percent, pay out of pocket. So this becomes, a major challenge. And I think just retail in general is very rudimentary in Nigeria. The help we need, we don't have. I mean, all you need to have is an idea in the US, for example, and real estate is available.
True.
Design and shop fitting is available, but we have to build everything from scratch. Sure. I remember in the early days of HealthPlus, we had this one shop fitter, and then he died. And really, we had to rebuild capacity to just make our stores look the way they do. So there are challenges with retail expertise, getting retail talent, there are challenges with retail technology, shop fitting, even point of sale. The basics of the basics are not available, and every day we just do our best with what we have.
Cool.
And build, internal capacity, work with our carpenters to shop fit, for example. Just DIY.
Is there seasonality in health?
Pardon?
Is there seasonality in health in your sales numbers? So people have malaria in certain periods, and then you have bigger
malaria is all year round. We're blessed with that. But of course, we have Harmattan, and during the dry season, we have a lot of cold and flu.
Okay, so you
skin,
capitalize on
blisters.
people's poor health during that time.
Well, we like to think that we're not just for
you alleviate them
to the sick.
Very
we're
good.
there for optimizing health and wellness. So our major niche at HealthPlus would be natural health, which is a big area where we play. People want to live forever. So natural health is a big thing for us.
Cool.
Yes.
How do you guys, what is your path to get to the mass market? What is the most important aspect for you to get there as you scale up the business? Because we all know, and we talked about this before, democratizing the opportunity. To do that, you need to reach the mass. And I would guess that for you, it's similar to me. It's about an attractive price point. So how do you then, Bukky, from your perspective, deal with the price point and hitting that? And what can you do to manage that?
Okay. So how can we reach further and farther?
Yeah.
With that kind of business, brick and mortar is still very important. And what we've done is to have 3 formats, like I said earlier. We're developing a format for the farther afield, rural areas. But you have to make the money. So for every 8 that we open up in urban areas, we open up 2 in the rural areas at this point in time, because they don't quite add up. We have to grow profitably. And one of the things that we do is, as long as our doors are open, there's a pharmacist, on duty. So building a different model for the rural areas is a real challenge, but we have some solutions.
Okay.
The law that is hopefully going to be read soon provides for satellite pharmacies.
Okay.
And what that means is that one pharmacist, because right now the law says each pharmacy must have one superintendent pharmacist.
All right.
But right now with the satellite pharmacies, one pharmacist can supervise 5 other pharmacies. So that would help us go further afield. And then just focusing on generics.
Yeah.
And hopefully, as the pharmaceutical industry grows in Nigeria, we can, be the channel.
And for you, Etop, how are you going to take this to the next level? What is key for you there?
It's building out a very strong distribution-led model. I think what's most unique is that we have to build out a distribution-led model that doesn't exist. So we've had to do a lot of research in studying companies and brands, Indomie being an example, Promasidor being an example of people who took a product and broke into the market where there wasn't really an existing distribution model prior to that. Telcos also are another good example. So I think the biggest challenge that we have has been, how do you standardize the product? Because every single car is unique and technically doesn't have the same price point. So how do we take this product and develop a distribution-led model with varying prices and expect that distributor to still come out profitable or that retailer to still come out profitable if they have to make that investment? And I think this is really where standardization of the assets and being able to bring on, also we have high ticket sizes. So a typical distributor in any market, 5 billion naira is enough. In our business, that is 2 cars, right? So it's also, it also requires a lot of investment in working capital to trade. It's super good, it's very lucrative, but you need working capital. So I think those 3 buckets are typically what we need to figure out. The final part would be consumer financing. Now, the automotive industry and financing go hand in hand. So, you find even a lot of OEMs have their financing arms. The ticket size makes it impossible to scale without financing playing a large role. So for us, it's making this asset very attractive to the financial industry to say, yes, we trust, and we believe that this is a product that we can do at scale. And so I think those 3 buckets are typically going to be the areas that we need to work on to sort of see our curve go up.
Brilliant.
Just very quickly, I'd like to mention our banner group. That is critical to go further afield. Because we've done a lot on our own and we've figured out a lot of things along the way, we're setting up a banner group which would have independent pharmacies. So we're not going to, we're not aiming to own other people's pharmacies, but we can form a banner group over them. So it's certainly one of the ways that we're reaching further and further.
It's fantastic. Guys, thanks a million for speaking to me. I'm truly excited to follow your career in the future. Best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you.